Hello, my name is Garrett Hill. I am the head judge for World Skate, and in this video we are going to be covering the OQS event in Shanghai for street skateboarding to give you a better idea on how the judges evaluate runs and single trick scores. Starting with the women's division in prelims, we want to focus on some of those runs that are closer to the bubble because as we're moving through the competition, I and as well as the judges, we're always looking at that bubble run to make sure that if we see a similar run, we are always referencing back to that bubble run and making sure that we're not over-scoring or over-rewarding a run that shouldn't be above the bubble score. So starting in 18th place, we have Yumika Oda, who really was putting together a phenomenal looking run, starting really strong with tricks like front blunt on the big rail, frontside 5 on the quarter pipe, moving into a frontside feeble on the bump to flat bar. Looking really good. This is a great start to this run. Then we get into an area of this run where we start to see a little bit of repetition. We have a kickflip up the step up, followed by a kickflip front board on that bump to red rail. Now, the next trick was a kickflip 50-50, which is a bail. So at this point, if you do 3 of the same flip trick in a row, you can guarantee that the judges are going to be talking about it. For sure, they're going to be saying, okay, it's another kickflip trick. That's some repetition. We know now at the end of the run that whatever we were going to score that without repetition, we're going to have to dock it back because of the repeated tricks. So as I always say before, runs that have heavy repetition like this, especially 3 tricks in a row that are the same, are never going to be able to maximize the score potential because of the repetition. The next thing to note that in this run from Yumika, she got a 61.66 even with that bail and missing the last trick. So not all bails are created equal, which is a very important concept that everyone needs to understand. If you bail on an insignificant trick in your run, we're not going to cut the head off of your score. You're going to see a deduction, but you're not going to see a massive deduction. Although, when you bail on a really big trick in your run, let's say the big section, for example, you can expect to see at least a 20-point drop-off. Mathematically, how many tricks are normally in the runs and how important, how much weight those big section tricks carry in your runs, mathematically that normally equates to about a 20-point deduction if you don't land that trick. So if you bail that trick in your first run and then you land that trick in your second run, that big section trick that you bailed on, you can more than likely, depending on what the trick is, see at least a 15 to 20 point jump up in your score, which is drastic. We're gonna focus on Lucy Schooner, who ended up being 17th. She was just outside of making the cut. And we're also going to focus on our 16th skater, Yan Zhang, who was all smiles. We loved her skating, super stoked that she made it through. But these 2 runs are really important because they're so similar. They actually follow the exact same route throughout the skate park with only subtle differences in the tricks that they were doing. So starting with Lucy, we see her starting off on that 4-stair rail with a frontside board slide, into that side hubba, that medium-sized hubba. She does a frontside nose grind on that. All sweet there. That was a cool 2-piece. Now here's where the runs are easy to compare. She does just an ollie over the pyramid gap and then a 50-50 on that step-up ledge. What happens when you land more than 2 tricks in a row or 2 tricks in a row? You spend an entire lap going from one side of the course to the other and you only do basic tricks. That really affects your overall impression. The judges have to evaluate your filler just as much as they evaluate your big section tricks in your runs. So if your big section tricks are really substantial and you have really insignificant, very easy basic level tricks for your filler, that's going to greatly depreciate the overall value of your run score. So please, something to be careful about. All the tricks in your run matter, even the filler. Moving forward in her run, she does a front feeble on the rail, which is great. Picks it back up, does a frontside 5-0 on the quarter pipe, like to see the flow, followed by a feeble on the rail, and ending just at the very end of it with a kickflip on the bank. Now that kickflip on the bank was the only flip trick in this run, and it's basically on flat. So the judges didn't really carry much weight when evaluating that. So she got a 61.87. Now, compared to Yan Zhang's run, again, she followed the exact same route, hit all of the same obstacles, and the technical difficulty is very similar to this. The only thing that I can see that's very different in this run is that Yan heel flipped up the step up, whereas Lucy only did a 50-50 on the step up ledge. When the skating is this similar, the judges have to nitpick things like this, and we have to always revert back to things that we say, that we stay consistent with. One of the things that we've stayed consistent with is rewarding skaters for doing flip tricks. The risk of doing a heel flip is a lot higher than the risk of doing a 50-50 on the step up ledge. And from the best of my knowledge, that's the only big difference I can see in this run as to why Yan was rewarded a higher score over Lucy. It wasn't much, it was 2 points, but it was enough to get her into the cut. So every little trick matters. Moving into semifinals for women in Shanghai, again, we're going to focus on 2 of the bubble scores that are near that area in order to evaluate those and give you a little bit more clarity on some of the scoring there. So just outside of the bubble, we have Momiji, and this is a great run. She starts with a gap to back lip on that fly out rail, which was really far. I tried skating that and I was scared to board slide it, so we were really rewarding the skaters that were hitting that. Followed by a frontside air on the quarter pipe, which we love to see, which brought her straight into the Smith grind on the bump to flat bar, crooked grind on the step up rail, which was a nice little 2-piece, frontside salad grind on the rail, a tail slide on the step up ledge, and then unfortunately she bailed the big spin frontside board slide on the big rail, which really would have put her up in the mix. And again, a 62.38, it's not a terrible score. And as I said earlier, normally those big section tricks account for about 15 to 20 points of your score. So you could have imagined that this score could have easily been in that mid to low 80s range if she would have landed that big spin front board. The amazing part about Momiji is that her single tricks are so good, and they were so good in Shanghai, that she almost put herself into the mix even though she had a big substantial bail in her run. The crook nollie heel flip out on the side hubba was incredible. She did it perfect, and the judges loved that. And she got really rewarded for that score. She got a 90.22 for doing that. She also gapped out to salad grind on the fly out rail, which was super sick. Nobody else did that. She's probably the only one that could do that out there. Again, being rewarded with an 89.64 for that trick. So incredibly close to making into the cut, but that bail in the run definitely put her out of the mix. Focusing on our 8th place rider, that's Poe Pinson in semifinals. We've got a really strong run here. The judges really like this line. It was great to see her skate so well. The thing that I want to point out in this run is the fact that this run could have been scored higher if it wasn't docked for repetition. And there was repetition here in the sense that her 2 big section tricks were both the same trick. She did a backside 50-50 on the big handrail, and also to finalize her run, did a 50-50 on that small green hubba ledge going down the center obstacle stairs. And she got a 78.84, and easily if she wouldn't have had repetition deductions, she probably would have been up in the 80s. But if your tricks are exactly the same on the big section, the judges have to take points off of that. If you're doing if all of your big section tricks are flips into board slides, that's again repetition. If all of your tricks are half cabs into the big section tricks, you're repeating the same kind of trick to get scores. So it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the riders And that's exactly the definition of the repetition rule. You can't overuse a trick that you are good at to rank higher than other riders when it's not fair to do so. So again, a great run from Poe. It was super cool. She used the whole course really well, did tricks that nobody else was doing, but got some repetition deductions in there. Moving into the finals round for women, we see some incredible skateboarding. It was so much fun to watch this. Starting with Coco Yoshizawa, who was our third place finisher, making it onto the podium and definitely earned it. She had some amazing two pieces in her runs. The judges really, really like to see this kind of skating where you can string two tricks together that maybe nobody else is able to do, or you find a line throughout the course that no one else is hitting. It's things like that that really allow your skating to stand out in the crowd and tick the boxes on the judging criteria, especially the use of course judging criteria. And she did a great job with this by doing backside Smith grind on the big rail, followed up with a 360 flip on the wedge bump. None of the other women were really doing tricks like that. And so that really made her line stand out. The difficulty is definitely there considering the back Smith is not an easy trick. The other two piece that she did to close out her line was the backside 50-50 on the yellow hubba, followed by the kickflip. So she used these really to her advantage, and this is exactly the kind of skating that allowed her to stand out and eventually get third. Closing out finals, we've got the Liz Akama and Raisa Leal battle that happened, and it was incredible to watch this. Their skating was incredibly comparable. Very, very difficult tricks that went on from both of them. A lot of fun to watch. So starting with Liz's run, she started differently from a lot of the other women. She started with a front feeble on the flat bar and then a kickflip up, step up, followed by a back Smith, immediately into that frontside 360. And there's that two piece again that Coco was using, but nobody else is doing frontside 360s. So that sets Liz Akama apart from the rest of the pack because she's the only one doing that kind of trick, and the judges like to see creativity of trick selection. After that, we've got just a banger filler trick from Liz with the frontside big spin heel flip over the pyramid top. Now this is such a good example on the importance of implementing a highlight into the middle of your run. The highlights of your run don't always need to be on the big section. They don't always need to be a flip trick over the hubba. You can absolutely have a substantial filler trick in the middle of your run that's over the pyramid gap that really makes your run 10 times better. This big spin frontside heel flip was exactly why this run was placed into the 90s, because that's such a difficult trick. No one else is doing it, and she did it perfectly. So congrats to Liz. Great coaching, great strategy to put this into the run, and ending with a frontside 180 nose grind down the little hub on the big stairs was great. Again, nobody else is doing 180 nose grinds. Great way to end the run, and a great score, 90.11. When it came down to the single trick section, Liz really showed up and handled business, coming in with a 270 frontside lip slide, 92.55. Again, phenomenal trick, pushing the levels and the boundaries for women's skateboarding. No one else is doing that trick. I hope more women see that kind of a score and start practicing that trick, because that's a great trick to have in your arsenal. Closing it out for Liz with the frontside feeble, frontside 180, a great choice, getting a great score, 91.69. She was so close to getting that top spot, but the way the numbers played out and the way that the tricks laid out, Raisa was the winner, and we can dig into her run next. And the winner of our Shanghai event is definitely going to go to Raisa. She skated so incredibly well, just dominated the run section, really handled business in the single trick section, and it was a pleasure to watch that and judge that. She did a great job. It was great coaching, great skating, amazing strategy. Digging into her run, I love this run because we've got a little bit of everything here. Starting with a kickflip front board on the little rail is a great way to start your run. The four-stair rail, even though it's a four-stair rail, doing a kickflip front board, still a great trick to start with. and then backing it up with a frontside nose grind on that medium-sized hubba. She's got a 50-50 on the quarter pipe after that, keeping her flow going, straight up into the kickflip backside 50-50. Now, this is the only thing that the judges didn't like about this run, is that she didn't lock into the kickflip 50-50. Something that's important to bring up here is that when you don't lock into a trick, it's not counted as a bail. It's just counted as the trick that you locked into. So say you were trying to crooked grind ledge and you fell into a nose slide. It's just going to be judged as a sketchy nose slide. And it also docks against you for style and execution judging criteria, but it's not counted as a bail. So again, still a great run, off to a great start, moving along, picks right back up with the backsmith on the big rail, followed straight into that. This is exactly what Coco did as well. Backsmith on the big rail and 3-flip on that bump. Did both of those perfect. Again, keeping her flow going with the backside 50-50 on the quarter pipe, it really, really helps the flow when you hit these quarter pipes. It's why I talk about the importance of using quarter pipes so much, is that it can turn an 8-trick run into an 11-trick run, which will vastly improve your overall impression with the judges. So after that 50-50, she's got a crooked grind on the pyramid rail, and then immediately into a backtail shove it, which nobody else was doing on that step-up bump to rail. What I love about this is that she ended with a front blunt shove it on the big rail, and that's such a sick way to end this run. Very well rounded. The only thing she got docked against was the kickflip 50-50 fallout, but again, wasn't considered a bail and ended with a really strong score of a 92.23. Moving into the single trick section, Raisa did do a trick that didn't count in her overall score, but this is a good example of the repetition rule and how it carries over from your run into your single tricks, is that Raisa did a kickflip front board on the big rail, right? She got an 86.30. Raisa already did a kickflip front board in her run. It was on a different spot. She did it on that forced air handrail, remember, to start her run. And this is where the repetition really comes into play. When you do a trick in the single trick section from semifinals onwards, the judges are looking at the run score that you did. They are looking at your line and making sure that you haven't already done that trick. If you've already done that trick, they have to take points off of your single trick score. If it's the same trick on the same spot, it's a more substantial deduction. If it's the same trick on a different spot, it's still a deduction, but not as much. So those are the two levels of repetition deductions that you can expect to see, and something that we're going to stay consistent with our point deductions moving into the single trick section. Now Coco, who got third, did a kickflip front board on the big handrail and in the single trick section and got the full point score. She got an 88.05. If she would have done that trick in her run on the same spot, if she would have ended her run with a kickflip front board on the big rail, you can expect that this score would have been substantially lower, probably in the 82 or the 83 zone. That's how big of a difference it makes when you repeat the same trick on the same obstacle. Considering the fact that the difference between first place and third place is normally less than a couple of points, you need every single point that you can get. So repeating tricks that you've already done in your run score in the single trick section is not a great strategy unless you really need to put points on the board. So that's where the repetition rule really comes into play. When you're fighting for every single point, if you've already done that trick in your run, you can't expect to get the full point score as opposed to someone who didn't do that trick in their run. And Reza closing it out with two phenomenal flip trick in moves on the handrails, a kickflip back lip and a heel flip front board. No one's doing heel flip front boards on the big section rails. So absolutely these scores are going to be in the 90s, and that was enough to put her into first. So congratulations to Raisa, congratulations to the podium and to all the other skaters for putting on an incredible performance. It was unbelievable to watch and set us up for an amazing start for Budapest.